Hello, I'm Grant Bachand, and this is Prince George Up Close, the only television show in the city where we sit down for one-on-one extended conversations with this community's movers and shakers. Today, we have arguably the biggest mover and shaker of them all, Mayor Lyn Hall. How are you doing today, Mr. Mayor?
Good, Grant. How are you? Good to be here.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I want to talk to you about how things are going and how you're finding your time here as Mr. Mayor of the community.
Well, things are going great. I think that we've accomplished a lot over the last 16 months. It's been a whirlwind, and certainly I and council and administration team have been very busy doing different things in the community. And as you can appreciate, the job as mayor and the job as being a councillor is so varied from day to day. Lots going on in the community.
What has been like some of the biggest challenges, some of the biggest differences you found from being a councillor to now being mayor?
Well, as you know, it's a full-time job being mayor, and I think the demands on your time are certainly different than being a councillor. I knew that. We were ready for that going into the job. But I think one of the surprises for me is how much goes on in our city day after day after day, and from sporting events to cultural events, things that are happening with conferences, organizations holding conferences and AGMs in our community. We are a very busy city, and I try to get to most of what's going on any given day.
We talked a lot about during the election many different things. We had you here in the Shaw Studios. One of the things I want to touch on is the housing piece we talked a lot about, just to start it off.
Sure.
So during the election, we talked about downtown housing, especially student housing. How are things going on that front?
Well, the student housing piece is moving along very nicely, and probably one of the most, I think one of the key components for downtown redevelopment is that student housing, and it's alive and it's vibrant, and that particular topic is still being discussed. We're still drawing partners in. We've got a lot of interest from developers who would like to do something downtown. But the thing that I have learned is the development and the investment piece sometimes is a slow process. So we have to be patient, but I'm pretty confident that it will come about. If I can just touch on one housing project that we have completed, and of course construction has started, but council's role has been completed, and that's the Riverbend Seniors Housing Project on 20th and Oak. That was another piece of the housing that we felt was really important. It was a piece of the puzzle that we needed to provide to seniors. So there's 170 plus units there. So that's being built, and now our primary focus for student housing is for downtown.
And so you're saying it's taking a long time. Do you think that it's something we're going to see, maybe some plans start being drawn up or something to come up soon? Or
yeah, I hope so. I hope we see something significant this year. We may not see building this year, but I think we're getting closer and closer to having commitment from developer around that. So it's an interesting process, as I said, but there's sure a lot of uptake for it. In every community you look at where we have a college or a university, there's downtown housing for students. And through the one of our education committees, which Councillor Merrick chairs, there's a lot of talk about that being one of the primary focuses of that committee is around student housing, particularly downtown, and the other one is around student transportation, which would involve our transit system.
And that's actually good that we talk about transit, because that was one of the things I was curious. Sitting in on the mayor and listening to the mayors and council meetings, we've been hearing a lot about transit, but we've been hearing a long time frame for it, about 5 to 10 years. Why is it taking so long?
Well, when we started to look at the transit system in Prince George, we had things that we wanted to do. We wanted to increase the arterial routes. We wanted to also change a bit of the times that were for pickup and drop off, and just I think make the routes just a little bit more compatible to people's schedules. So that takes time, takes dollars, and of course there was a funding freeze that BC Transit was caught up in. So that, of course, was a couple of years. So now we're able to have that conversation again with BC Transit and say, look, we'd like to change some of these routes, particularly, as I said, the arterial routes, and also the main routes that run from UNBC the college and into downtown. We've heard from that particular education committee that we need to look at those and make them a little bit more compatible to the students' needs.
And I remember hearing a little bit about rapid transit lines as something that is
Yeah.
something to bring in from the Heart to College Heights. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. So not only the Heart, but also Blackburn, and we heard that at our Talktober events. How can we provide that rapid transit? So one stop, pick up, and then drop off at a particularly centralized location in downtown or the college or the university.
Are you talking about the airport?
No, not necessarily from the airport, but from the Blackburn community as a whole.
Okay.
And but you know that again, it's costly, and we have to. And BC Transit will ask us about ridership. What does the ridership look like? But it hasn't fallen off the plate. It's still something that we're certainly looking at.
One of the things that when you were doing your campaign, I remember we talked a little bit about an entertainment zone in the downtown. And my question is the entertainment zone was a big part of the downtown strategy for for your campaign, I guess.
Right.
However, one of the things is when you look at it, we're seeing places like the Legion, Nancy O's, Black Clover, and the Lambda who are providing a lot of entertainment, but they're all sprawled all over the downtown in different locations. Is it realistic that we can make a zone particular?
I think it is. And when we talked about an entertainment zone, we also were really talking not just about restaurants and those kinds of establishments, but also if somebody was interested in coming into Prince George and opening up a nightclub, that kind of thing was also part of that entertainment zone. But if we take a look at the Keg and we take a look at Nancy O's, Black Clover, Copper Pig, they're all within about a 3 or 4 block radius. So for me, those are pretty tight confines. It's not a lot of space, not a lot of walking or traveling that people have to take to get to those individual locations, keeping in mind that we're going to have our own craft brewery opening up in the old Tony Roma's site on the corner of 5th and George. So I think what we're doing and we're seeing happen is a real collective gathering of some very fine establishments within close proximity of one another, and that's good. That's very good for us.
And part of your downtown revitalization plan, I believe, has been the derelict housing and
Right.
derelict properties. So what's the end goal with that aspect of it?
Well, the end goal is to be able to let the downtown community know that we are absolutely committed to redevelopment, and part of that is getting rid of derelict buildings, and we've started that process, and also to clean up pieces of property downtown that are vacant, whether that means simply going in and leveling them off, putting fill in, planting grass. We want those properties not to be an eyesore. We want those properties to add to the neighborhood. We see that as a vital piece of what we're trying to do downtown. So if you're a visitor or if you're somebody that's interested in investing downtown, you see our downtown as being pleasant to the eye. We've got a facade improvement project that's run through the Downtown Business Association, where businesses can apply for a certain amount of funding to improve their facades. That's an important component of what we're doing downtown. The other thing is the graffiti program. It's been proven from community to community that graffiti will turn people away. So we've got a program in place, again, through the Downtown Business Association to look at getting rid of the graffiti on buildings. It's all about everybody in the downtown, since that's what we're talking about, just being a good neighbor. And making sure that the properties are well kept, the vacant lots are well kept. Even if we have to be involved in it, we're prepared to do that.
Out of curiosity, when we demolish a building that's considered derelict, what happens with the title and the property? Does it go to the city and then the city then looks to dole it out afterwards?
No, the option is that if you have a derelict piece of property with a building on it and it's a health and safety concern and we want to demolish it, we give you the opportunity to take that on yourself and pay for it. And there's a certain time frame involved. If you don't meet that time frame, then we will go in and do that. And whatever cost is incurred on demolishing that building, we'll put it on your tax bill.
And then you may basically pay it back.
Right.
When they're paying it back, though, is there any thought for rebuilding that building and putting something new in that location?
Well, sure, we'd love to see that. But first and foremost, we want to make sure that that derelict building is torn down because it's not safe for the community and it is an eyesore. So we want to make sure it's gone. And whoever owns that piece of property, if they choose to build on it, that's even a bigger plus for us. We want to see that kind of development. It's key for our downtown, key for our city.
Yeah. One of the, looking back on the tape, and one of the things I remember talking to you about was downtown safety, especially with younger people late at night. And you talked a little bit about foot patrols and how more foot patrols creates a thing of a calmer situation and things a little bit more relaxed. How is that going? Are we getting more?
Good. It's going very well, and I want to commend Superintendent Brown for the work that he and his team are doing over at the RCMP. And I still say that when you have foot patrols downtown or even patrol cars downtown, the presence goes a long ways to calming things, as you've said. And it's an important piece of our work downtown, and we need it to continue. We need that RCMP presence. It's no different than any other community that you go to. You see an RCMP presence throughout the city. But certainly in this case, it really is a plus for us to be able to do what we would like to do as far as redevelopment.
And when I think about safety in the downtown, a lot of it I also think about is creating homes for people who can't quite afford that too, and that's almost going back to the housing component. We talked about senior housing, we talked about student housing, about affordable housing and things like that. Is there options in that sort of way?
Yeah, so if you take a look at what happened over, and it's not right downtown, but certainly on 20th Avenue with the Victoria Towers location, BC Housing came in and have established affordable housing for folks that are in need of housing. Some, in fact, were living on the street, and now they've got a roof over their head and they've got someplace they can call home. And we've got a couple locations downtown that we would like to see that kind of development, and it's working with organizations like BC Housing. It's organizations like AWAC, for example, that are the professionals in this area, and we would like to be able to continue to work with them. And I think that there is a real need, and still there's been need for years to provide that kind of housing opportunity for folks.
Definitely. Now, when we think about Civic Pride, that was one of the big things I remember hearing, is that we need to be proud of our community and we need to be ambassadors of our community. Do you feel that Civic Pride has gone up since we've been here?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've seen that increase sort of tenfold, and that was as a result of the 2015 Canada Winter Games. I think it instilled in this community a sense of pride and a sense that we can pull this off, we can do this. And you talk to any of the councillors or staff from the city, and as they travel, people comment on what a great job we did, and that's carried over. We're going to continue to have some pretty great events this year. The All-Native Fastball Tournament, for example, which is going to draw hundreds and hundreds of people into the city, and it's things like that that continue to grow. The fact that we were put on the map nationally, we have provincial and national organizations coming to Prince George and holding their conferences and their annual general meetings. So I think that the pride of the community shows every day when I'm walking around. I think there's a different attitude. I think people are just so proud about what we've done in the city.
I certainly have noticed it changed at UNBC, and even students and how they feel about the community.
And you know, all of that is really driven by the residents of our community. Folks just taking a little, a little time to walk around, take a look at what's offered in Prince George, and we're hearing lots of great comments about the city, and I can't thank the residents of the city enough for what they've done to promote that.
That's excellent. And we like to focus on the positive here, but there's also a little bit of a negative thing that we have been noticing since this council has come in, is you guys have taken on a lot of socially conscious initiatives, like the Pride Walk and the renaming the Clayton to Name Memorial Park. Now, there has been a backlash, which has had a kind of a seedy underbelly that has been not so great for the community, especially on social media. How have your impressions been about the backlash about the renaming of Clayton to Name Memorial Park, the Pride Walk itself, and those sort of programs that people are concerned about?
Well, let me talk about the Pride Walk and the Pride Parade for a moment. They've been mainstays in our community for quite a long time, and without question, yes, council's supportive of that. And again, I think it's indicative of the multicultural community that we have and the diverse community we have. You take a look at Lake Park, and the nice thing about living in Prince George or living in Canada is you have an opportunity to exercise your comments. And that's what people will do. And there are some, yes, that aren't happy about either one of those. But that's their prerogative to express their concerns or their dislike of a position that's been taken by council. So, I respect the fact that they don't agree, and I also respect the fact that they have an opportunity to let us know.
And have that sort of airing of grievances.
Sure.
How do you deal with that though when somebody comes up to you, and not just about the park or anything,
Yeah.
but when someone comes up to you and they fervently disagree with an opinion you've taken?
I give them all the time in the world that they need to let me know that they're not happy with the decision that I've made or that council has made. It's their opportunity to let me know firsthand, and I have no issue with that whatsoever.
Okay.
I give them the time they need, and if if they're willing to listen to me, I will certainly let them know my position on it and why I voted in a particular way on a particular issue.
An issue that has started coming up, which is very interesting, has been mental health and especially the community's responsibility to meet that. And one of the ways that the city has done it was with the Car 60 program.
Right.
And we've seen the Car 60 program be very successful. Are there any programs in the future that you want to see that be brought in like the Car 60 to kind of do that divide, that bridging of the gap?
Yeah, I think the Car 60 program was certainly something. Again, I want to thank Superintendent Brown and his team for the work they've done there. That Car 60 program is going to continue. It's the only program at this point that is a program of that nature that's out there for the RCMP to use. But it has gone a long way, I think, to really help the RCMP and certainly us as a whole community when it comes to police calls, people who are in mental distress of some sort, and they need that professional person there to talk to. And I think it's really bridged the gap for them. And it's a great program, and so very supportive of it. It will continue, and at this point that's the only program like that we're currently running.
This was a question that was brought to me by another student here at UNBC. He wants to know about the recycling initiatives that the city's taken, and is there hopes to expand them to make sure that more communities have it, especially in the downtown area?
Yeah, so the recycling program is conducted really by Multi-Material BC, and as you know, it's residential pickup, and the recycling has now been going on for quite some time. There's no partnership there between the city and MMBC. As you know, the province had worked with having MMBC do the delivery of that particular process throughout the province. And I think the only area that we need to really focus on is when we take a look at multifamily dwellings. So there was some multifamily residential, multifamily apartment buildings, et cetera, that weren't being picked up on. There were no recycling opportunities. I think that's a piece that we need to resolve. And I think that's going to be a conversation with MMBC to see if they would start looking at that. And I agree with the person who asked the question. If we have an opportunity to expand recycling, we need to do that. And I think when we look at apartment buildings, multiple family units, that's one area that we could get MMBC to see if they couldn't start to do a pickup there.
Excellent. One of the things that I kind of wonder, we've looked back now, it's been 2 years since you've been in the office, and what do you feel like is some of your biggest successes looking back?
Well, I think there's a few, and I know I've already talked about the Riverbend Seniors Housing Complex, but that was huge for us. That housing complex was something we heard loud and clear during the campaign, that if you want to retain seniors in the community, give us an option for living at a location that is not our residence. We may want to sell our current home and move into something smaller, move into something that's just turnkey. We can lock the door and go away for a while. So that's a big achievement for us. I think the other piece is that we've really continued to carry on with things like our snow removal, our refurbishing and resurfacing of our streets and roads. We put about $14 million into that every year. And that's huge. We heard loud and clear that we want great access in the winter. We want snow clearing to be a priority. We've continued with that. So I'm very proud of that, and I know council is too. We continue to fund that to a point where I think we've got some of the best roads in the winter anywhere in the country, and also the redevelopment and refurbishing of our roads in the summer with paving, et cetera. We're taking a look. I'm proud of the fact that we're doing work around remedial action on properties and buildings that are just really not just an eyesore, but health and safety. I'm proud of that work that council has been doing. We're embarking on a couple of things. Talktober is a big event that was held last year. We're going to hold it again. That has really got council and administration out into the community to hear firsthand some of the concerns, some of the things people would like us to do. If you also take a look at the development around the city, we have a great incentive package for people who want to look at housing opportunities. So developers come into town, we have tax incentives for them, tax incentives for businesses, because we knew that we needed to be in a competitive position with other communities. So that's a real strong piece when we take a look at economic development. And we're seeing it now in some of the housing starts. I think we're up to about $42 million worth of permits year to date. That's much more than we've seen in the past. So we're very proud of those initiatives that we put into place to make us competitive in the investment market. So those are just a few of the things that really stand out.
And so with those sort of things in mind, what's your goals now for the rest of your term, this term as mayor?
Well, you know, I think we're into our term now about 18 months, and we continue to fine tune things. Housing is still a key piece of what we would like to see happen. I think now what we're going to be looking at is our infrastructure needs. We're doing a parks assessment, we're doing a facility assessment. That will give us an idea of what we need to do to reinvest into our parks, reinvest into our infrastructure. That'll be a big piece of what council will be looking at over the next probably 8 or 9 months. And the infrastructure is not just below ground, Grant, it's our infrastructure above ground. So we talk about the Four Seasons Pool, the Coliseum, Fire Hall number 1. It's old, and we need to start to consider alternatives for it. You take a look at CN Center or the Aquatic Center, and many people would think, wow, that's amazing, but those buildings are a couple of decades old.
CN Center is a couple of decades old?
Yeah,
wow.
And we need to start to put a long-range plan in place to make sure that we refurbish. And we have something in place that you know, administration and perhaps other councils can follow. So that's going to be the bulk of our work. We're working very closely with the federal government on infrastructure dollars. I know we've talked about it a lot, but the announcement that came out a while ago from the feds gave us a great deal of hope that we're going to see infrastructure dollars for a number of things. So we keep on top of that, but we're going to be busy in the next 8 months. And then of course there's the day-to-day things that will come our way around rezonings and bylaws that we're putting into place. We hope now that the logistics park on Boundary Road takes off. There's some interest there. So it's all about trying to deal with our infrastructure needs. It's about dealing with and attracting development into our community. So we've got a lot of things.
A lot of things on the plate to go.
A lot of things on the plate.
Cool. And I guess my last question would be, what do you want people to know? If you could have any message to people after the election and even going forward, what do you want people to know about for yourself and the community? Well,
I guess what I want people to know about is that you've got a group of folks around the table in mayor and council and also our senior administration team that are absolutely committed to this city and committed to just making things the best that they can be. And I also would like folks to know that you have an opportunity to contact any one of us at any time. Would like folks to take the opportunity to come out and meet with us during our Talktober events, where we really do use that for our strategic planning and for our budgeting. And those are important opportunities, and I would like to see residents take advantage of that. And I think I would also like to just send a thanks out to the community, out to the residents on behalf of council for feedback that you've given us to date, telling us what you would like to see happen in your community. And I think too, just for the upbeat feeling there is in Prince George and the fact that I think people feel comfortable in getting a hold of mayor and council.
It's certainly a lot more open mayor and council than I've been here my whole life, and I've never been so connected with the political scene here.
Well, you bring up a good point. I mean, you take a look at you and I, how often we see each other somewhere, and I think that's what this community is all about. And that's why I think, and it's an old phrase, but municipal government for me is closest to the folks that you deal with day in and day out, and it's nice to be out in the community. And it's real nice to be able to see things happen. So for example, the skateboard park up in the Heart. You know, we're having a big event there, and that was something that the Heart group had said to us, look, we've been trying to do this for a while, can we make this work? And when you see achievements like that, it certainly makes being on council a great job.
It's the rewards of the job, I guess.
Rewards of the job.
Excellent.
Exactly.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I
Well,
really
thank you.
appreciate that.
Yeah, good to see you. Thanks very much, Grant.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks again to Mayor Lyn Hall. He won't be the only member of City Hall we'll be sitting down with on Prince George Up Close. Later on this season, we'll be sitting down with a few of the city councillors. Let me know what you thought by tweeting me at Grant Bachand. Till next time, thanks for watching.